Okay, fantastic. Well, we have an excellent teacher panel here tonight. We're very lucky. First off, I'd like to introduce you to Tegan Partington. So Tegan actually started her career in business. She completed a Bachelor of Business and a Bachelor of Arts and worked for an international trading business. However, a passion for education encouraged her to move into teaching. So Tegan has worked extensively in government schools in the western suburbs of Melbourne. And in 2012, she was actually awarded a scholarship by the Victorian Department of Education to complete postgraduate studies in teaching students with ASD. And in 2015, she moved up to Sydney and started working at Moriah College, and then later that year, and is currently teaching year 3 at the moment. And she's very passionate about student welfare and well-being. So next we have Peter Ross. So Peter has been teaching for 18 years and is currently at Carey Christian School, which is an independent prep to 12 school in the southwest of Sydney. So he's an experienced HSC senior marker, and his interests lie in geography, business studies and economics. He has oversight of his school's enrollment team and is very much at the forefront of dealing with parents' changing expectations of schools. Next we have Aurelia Wilkenson. Now Aurelia has 11 years experience as a high school teacher across quite a wide range of subjects, from business studies to legal studies, business services, work studies, commerce and finally geography. So Aurelia actually spent a year and a half teaching at an independent and private school in the UK. She returned last year and is currently teaching geography for years 7 to 10 at Fairfield High School. And last but certainly not least, we have David Berridge. David has 15 years experience as a careers counsellor and a history teacher. Now, 14 of those years was actually spent at Cranbrook School, which is an independent North school, and David is currently teaching at Moriah College in Sydney. So as a careers counsellor, he's passionate about helping students make informed and right choices for the future, while also understanding the ever-changing tertiary education sector and the industry in general. So I'll pass over to Naomi now to lead our teacher panel this evening.
Thank you, Rowan. And thank you once again for being here. I know it's a big ask in the middle of term time with everything that you have on your plate, but I'm sure everyone in the room really appreciates your time. So this is always a really popular part of the events that we host, where we get to hear right from the teachers' mouths themselves, and we open up the floor to questions from yourself. But I've got a few questions to kickstart the evening. And I guess we've heard about market research from an organisation's perspective, but from a teacher's perspective and from a school's perspective, it can mean something very different. So many teachers who haven't actually worked outside of the education system in a different career or a different vocation might hear the term market research and get a little bit riled and not really understand exactly what that means and looks like. So we have to really clearly communicate to teachers that we're just asking for your opinion. And that's one of the things that I found when I was teaching, and in all of my years of talking to teachers. Teachers are very rarely asked what they want and what they need in the classroom. 9 times out of 10, a resource is developed and handed to you, and you critique it and you think, okay, well this is brilliant, or who wrote that? And how on earth did it get across my desk? And so what we have always based all of the program development here at Kimberlin on is we have to ask teachers what they want, what they need, and how they best would like to access it. Because if we don't do that, then you're potentially spending your funding on a resource that is not wanted, not going to be used, or maybe going in the wrong direction for your particular area. And it sounds like a no-brainer, but it is something that is very often missed and something that we value very strongly here at Kimberlin. So tonight's conversation is going to be in and around resourcing, programming, how you access the tools that you use to support yourself in your programming, as well as the students in the classroom. And then in a flipped learning environment, you know, what you know students are using at home and how we can start bringing conversations from the school to the classroom. So what I'll do is I'll phrase a couple of questions, and then I'll throw it over to the teachers for your thoughts, opinions and response. And then we can throw it open to you, and you can take this opportunity to ask any burning questions you might have too. So if we start with resourcing, I'd just like a really kind of brief overview from everyone on where you access your resources. What's your first port of call in your mind if you have to teach something new or something comes across your desk? Where do you go to access information? And what types of resources do you tend to reach for the most? Are they digital? Are they apps? Are they still hard copy? I mean, what are you looking for? So I'll throw it over and we can either go down the line, or if you're very passionate and you want to speak up, please do.
I'll be quick. The role I had at Cranbrook, I was overwhelmingly the careers counsellor, and I taught a Year 11 careers education class that I created. So for me, the resources there were a number of them. The main one was news, to find out what's going on in the world, and specifically the careers that come out of that. So a good example of today would be the volcano in Hawaii. You talk about the science careers that come out of it, or the media careers, or whatever. And so I would adapt what I taught Year 11 in those classes to what's going on in the world. That would be one option. Apps are a good option, another alternative. For Cranbrook had roughly about 160 boys in each year. And out of that, 95% would apply for, or 99% would apply for university. And out of that, 80-90% would get accepted into university. So for me, what the resources I was looking at usually came from universities. Probably the good things that New South Wales here, so that's good. So they were one of the sources, and the other four big ones in New South Wales and the NCT. As a history teacher, I would trust my head of department, because Anne Burns is wonderful. And so staff meetings every week, or every weekend, or every 2 weeks, she would explain this resource has arrived, and if it had gone through Anne Burns' dodgy check, I would teach that resource. But the other ones are usually online ones as well. Mainly to create the data that you need to teach your class. So I'm not too sure about the other guys, but for me, teaching, one more thing. Being able to talk in class rather than boys finding it online, for me, is what teaching is about, isn't it?
Well, I use textbooks. Often I reach out for a textbook, and sometimes these textbooks offer an online version, or something that I can access on the computer as well. So a soft copy as well as a hard copy. Because as I create worksheets, I often have to use content from there. So if there's something we need to teach, we'll use the textbook because we have to follow the syllabus points. So textbook, and also of course online. We'll just go to Google. A lot of teachers do that. We'll just Google something. So
yeah, I think we're slaves to syllabus a lot of the time. So and we're, as you said, time poor in terms of scope and sequencing. We've got a week to teach this unit, and so the textbook is similarly a place you go to, but textbook is deaf in my school. You just don't teach with the textbooks. Parents don't expect that to happen. So you're using the textbook to get a bit of an idea to remodel that into something, into a worksheet, and you're using that content to either go to Mr. Google to search a phrase from the syllabus, and hopefully there's a YouTube or a PowerPoint or something there that has been done, and I'm just after little nuggets of gold. So I'm not after big whole programs of things. I sort of do it lesson by lesson, and if I can put in a phrase from the lesson I'm doing, and I get 15 or 20 minutes of something that's useful, that is fantastic for me. So, and students these days, they don't, once upon a time you find a video and go, wow, that's 50 minutes, that's terrific, that's a lesson. Put that on and, watch it with them, and know they'll watch it with you if they haven't fallen asleep. But today it's like you've got to be changing between things so quickly. Their attention span is minimal, goldfish-like. So you have to go into the classroom with several different ideas and switching between a bit of textbook, a bit of something on the screen, watch something for a few minutes. So you need to be armed with a lot of things, and something, just even small snippets, is invaluable for teachers.
Thank you.
I agree with what you said. You touched on a lot of things. I think what I have to think about, I'm a primary school teacher, so I teach content areas. I need a resource that can be differentiated, so something that's open-ended, something that I can have in my classroom. Starts off in a basic way, but then I can move it this way for you, and I can move it that way for you, and challenge students at their optimal learning areas. And videos are great. I love them when they've got an Australian accent. There's not a lot there. And songs. I mean, we teach little kids, so last year I taught year 1, and there was a lovely song about 3D objects, and I can still hear kids walking around singing. It's fantastic. It's stuck in my head.
I think we like creativity. I mean, we are creative people in itself. So, I mean, for me, and it differs by different teachers, I guess, but getting something off the shelf and delivering it is not something that I like doing. My most enjoyment is actually taking something and turning it into something a bit different. I know my children, whereas you guys putting together a few lessons don't. So there's always some remodelling that has to happen, either extending some kids or dumbing it down for those who struggle. And so, the different levels and having to be creative with the material is always going to happen. We don't want something off the shelf because invariably we're modifying it anyway.
Absolutely, and I think that's something that we educate. We have educated our clients on over the years, and that there's no one-stop shop resource that's going to cover off all of the students' abilities in the one class. And if any of you were here for the client event we did at the beginning of the year, we discussed in great detail the difference in ability once a child is in year 4. The age range of ability is something like 8 years from memory. And so to develop a program or to develop a lesson plan that you think is going to be a ticker box for teachers that they can just pop straight into their program, it's a bit of a thing of the past. And so the teachers that we speak to on a regular basis say, great, give us a program, but be mindful that we'll select this component, and this might fit in, and then we'll bring something in from over here. So having the ability to make sure that those programs are adaptable, or the resources that you're developing are adaptable, is crucial to, I guess, the success in your eyes. Yes, sorry.
Also,
Come back in a moment. I'll keep going and jump in any time. So my point on that is, given the fact that it's not a one-stop shop curriculum, and the fact that differentiated learning is so important in our classrooms to cater for all students' abilities, when you are looking at programming, when you're looking at textbooks, when you're looking at something that you may find online that's a unit of inquiry or a series of lessons strung together, how do you differentiate yourselves as to, is this a quality resource? Is it meeting the curriculum links? And how would you then adapt it to your classroom? Talk us through the process of how you do that.
At the moment I'm teaching, at Moriah, I'm teaching Year 9 history, so we're just doing, we'll finish Gallipoli, we're moving into the Palestine campaign. And Moriah is a Jewish school, and so one must make sure that one is conscientious, was the phrase I was told to be about, with regards to the content. And so the other day we were talking about the Balfour Declaration Sykes-Picot, which basically split that part of the world. So that was one of the main things I needed to make sure was that the information that I got was incredibly unbiased. And presenting it to the class was also took some manipulation. But the great thing was, and I find this, I'm not too sure about the rest of the guys, but teenagers from about Year 9 onwards, they have a fairly good sense of the world. Granted that a lot of it's based on their timing of the world, and they can be stuck in the timing of the world. What I'm finding is that if you ask them what they think as an adult, or what they believe they think as an adult, that makes sense. They appreciate it, and it makes the learning a little bit more adaptable, a little bit more absorbed, especially in a school like I'm at the moment. But I think in the Cranbrook it was the same way. I mean, teenage boys think they are running the world. But if you use the information that you get and sort of present it in a way that just, instead of just plonking it in front of them and saying, learning this, asking them what they think about it, makes it more adaptable, more acceptable. I'm not too sure about that.
Yeah, so I will. Yeah, sorry.
I remember what I was saying. But it fits in with what you're saying. It's about whatever we're doing, any resources and things that you're making, I always try to make real world links. Even when I was teaching like year one, that's a very, very young sort of age, you still have kids going, well, I'm doing this. So your resources and using the news and things like that make them authentic, I think. Sorry.
It definitely has to be relevant. So, and yes, like you said, global mix. We do like to look at the world and see how it fits into the world, especially in a subject like geography or business studies. We do have to look at those global links, but definitely relevance.
Resources that are updated regularly is good as well, because in our subject area, the currency of that is really important. You can't have something that is outdated. So you can't go back to something that was done 5 years ago, because the world has shifted and changed so quickly since then. So you're expecting it to be updated and so it's current information for kids. Yeah.
What about the authenticity of a resource? I guess that then comes back to if it's up to date, doesn't necessarily mean it's an authentic resource that's written by a credible source. So with your own personal experience in terms of the resources that you use to plan with, talk us through a little bit about your approach to determining whether a resource is authentic and credible, and how you remove the bias or how you attest whether it has bias in it. And then furthermore, how do you teach your students to become critical thinkers? Because obviously Google is the first place they go to when they start looking at researching a particular assignment that you've given them. How do you do that in the classroom?
Can I say something? We were talking about this just before, actually downstairs, and I teach year 3, so they're like 8 and 9 years old. They already know now, in 2018, that Wikipedia can be hacked, that's what they say, and so Wikipedia is not a reliable resource. So they actually already are looking at sources of information and where they get their information from critically already.
Fake news.
Yeah, they say that to each other. A few years back in Victoria, I was teaching 5-6, and that was like 2011, 2010. They didn't have that same sort of savvy about where they got the information from. They would type something up, first thing that came up, okay, it's Wikipedia and it says this. They just took that as the truth and didn't question it. So I think it's already changing. So we need to keep thinking about that when we're presenting resources and information to our students.
I'm happy to use biased information. It just helps me say, well, where is this person coming from? Perceptions rather is important. That's what comes through our geography courses all the time. So presenting a biased piece is not necessarily bad, as long as you've looked over it first, and you can say, well, where's this writer coming from, or what angle are they pushing with this, and they'll get it, and they'll talk it through. And economics, this is left wing, right wing kind of thing. It's actually helpful sometimes.
That's good to know.
Likewise, I think it's not as important to us to say it's got to be authentic, an authentic author. I mean, it can be anyone really now. Kids read blogs and so forth, and that's just opinion based. So they have to be reading all sorts of material and gathering their own ideas and thoughts from different sources.
I say something about resources. You just prompted me. I was using a few recently online. We've got trying to bring in BYOD, bring your own devices to school, and that's met with some kind of helpful in one sense, but sort of we're almost giving it up already and going back to worksheets and other things. They're having the computer there just to click on a few resources and have it like an extended textbook. The kids associate computers with fun, and anything on the computer is fun and not learning, and we just have problems with it. And I thought, I was going with that one as well. Got so distracted. But, yep, no idea. I'll come back to it. That's 2, you're next.
We'll come back to you.
I think for the experiences I've had over 14 years, teenage boys are naturally sceptical. Does anybody have any teenage sons? They're naturally sceptical, and they believe they know it all. And in some ways, it's wonderful because what you put in front of them, they automatically assume that it's biased or that it's wrong. But it can be infuriating. And I found usually by the end of year 12 they realised that, well, there is actually stuff in the world that you do need to know that is correct. And being a critical teenage boy doesn't necessarily help in some ways.
That would be critical, but not necessarily the way we wanted them to be.
It does take a long time to explain.
My 16-year-old daughter, I tell her I wish I was 16 so I could go back to knowing everything again.
So one last question from me and then we'll hand it over to the floor. Just looking at the technical capabilities of schools and the wide range of schools that you have taught in public and private, we understand that teachers are being tasked more and more to support students in developing technology, their technological understanding, their ability to present their assignments and their work using a piece of technology. Talk us through some of the most popular technology platforms, software or tools that you've used yourself. And also, as an aside to that, can you let us know whether there are any barriers associated with using technology in the classroom?
Can I just say, even if you are at one school, the use of technology will probably fluctuate wildly between classes and teachers. This is just something that I found today. We've only got year three classes, and we wanted to do a bit of an assessment task to test how they can use the digital technology. We've got iPads, and there was one teacher who flat out refused to do it because she didn't know how to do everything. And I said, it was just a checklist. It was like, can you open a Google Doc? Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do? And she wouldn't do it because she didn't know how to do it herself. And just because you're going, I'm going to X school, that teacher is using that might not be the case across the board. So there is that kind of a barrier to how technology is used.
And it's important that teachers do know how to use it, because there's nothing worse than standing up in front of a class of 25 kids and battling to find out where to go to use it. Nothing worse. They're given half a minute, they're climbing the walls and trying to get out the window in some schools, and the teacher has got to be super confident in using it. So whatever you're using, it's got to be easy to use and navigatable.
And also understand that the student's ability is probably far greater than most of ours.
That's a thing
as well.
Yeah, but even I've got some kids who learn not by computers. And I remember what I was going to say before, in BYOD stuff, and you would come to me, that I'm finding they're not good readers of things online. So anything that's presented where they have to read a lot on the screen, they just don't do it. They don't take it in. They play computer games, they do things like that, but if you want to read something, it's still best, I'm finding, on paper, in front of them, pick up a pen, highlight some keywords, do those kind of things. And the internet is there more as a clickable link to find a few things, look at some pictures or stimulus for them. So anything that is being used, not pages and pages of text, because they will get lost in it and not read it.
I'm interested to know if that trend changes as you get digital natives that are really, like, these kids are using iPads and things since they're like 1 or 2 years old, because the attitudes that I've got towards technology, it's cool, it's fun, you can do games and things, but I did a survey with my students last year, they were year ones, and most of them said, 75% of my students said it was for learning. They didn't identify it as a toy, but it's just a thing that's changing.
And yet year sevens at the moment for me would be saying still there, some will engage with it on that capacity, and others are there saying, I'm trying to talk, and they're trying to open their computers, because that's the way they can play their music at the same time as watch this and do that, because they can do 4 or 5 things at once, because they're clever.
I think that's the secret that I found at Crabble and at Moriah as well, is that to use the technology as a teaching resource, not to replace the teacher.
Yeah.
There are some colleagues who just put everything online and say, just do it, just follow
That's
this.
babysitting.
It comes with electronic babysitter in some ways. And I know that there are some schools that they became laptop schools, and then they realised after a year or 2 years that it wasn't working, and so they changed and made that students were no longer allowed to use the laptops in class. They had to pay attention. The teacher used the technology, but the students didn't.
So we get into that point.
Yeah, I find that I'm now doing that as well. It's handing out stuff and showing up on the board what's in front of them, and so they can expand a piece of paper and go on and take greater learning from what's in front of them, rather than just do this stuff in front of a laptop.
I think there's a very murky line between what is considered best practice versus what the reality is in the classroom and how it actually is implemented. And obviously it depends on what school you're at and the use of technology, but I think that's an important point to remember.
Part of your question was about different platforms and things that we're using. So we're really fortunate to have ProWise boards, and they're really amazing for
Can you
collaboration.
explain to the people in the room who don't know what a ProWise board is?
ProWise board is amazing. I don't work for them. So it looks like a rather large TV, but it's on hospital grade hydraulics. So it goes up, it goes down, it can go flat like a table. You can have 10 touch points on it, so kids can work collaboratively on there. But it's also got Pro Connect, which I used, talk about technology not working, I used it at a parent, like a meet the teacher, and it didn't work. It was like, this is really awesome when it works. But I can send out questions to the kids, they can send their responses back to me, or I can grab them straight from their iPads and we can look at, this is my favourite mistake and analyse errors and things like that. So it's really interesting because, that's the same students that are using technology like that in my class are emailing me during their other classes. And I'm like, Emily, what are you doing? And she's like, hee hee hee. She'd be paying attention. She's like, hee hee. So it's I don't know, you'll freak out.
It's a great feature. Shut down.
So good.
We use Google Classroom as our common one to use. But again, I was away for a lesson and came back, and I was at a conference and I was looking in to see what they've done, because you can see what they're up to in their worksheet. So they were in the middle of class now, I wonder what they've done. Log in and see. And all they've done was treat it like a blog, and they started making stupid comments underneath the worksheet, and it just went for bing, bing, bing for like half an hour. They're not doing anything.
Also, we use Cecil.
Yes.
That's a really, and we're starting to get parents involved with Cecil too. So that's it's cute because they can take a photo of their work and then post it, and then mum and dad can see it. They go, well done, Papa, this is brilliant.
It's a real-time app to ensure that, for those of you that don't know, to ensure that parents are being brought into the students' learning when they're at work. You get I've got my son, he's only 3.5, and I get text messages all day long about what he's doing in his learning, which is generally digging in the sandpit. But it's a fantastic app, and it's just another way that schools are starting to utilise technology to try and bridge that gap from school to home. Well, we might, just in the interest of time, we might hand over to the floor now. Does anybody have any burning questions that they'd like to ask our teacher panel this afternoon? This is normally the most popular time, so I hope you've prepared something.
No question.
No? Yes,
I'm curious to know what it would take for you guys to be willing to trial a new resource. Is it a recommendation from a colleague? Is it a beautiful brochure? Is it someone actually coming to the school to take you through it? What?
All three.
Listeners, absolutely. Yeah, we'd like someone to come and introduce it to us, of course.
Email a recommendation from someone else. That's we don't need a whole bunch, and we don't look at brochures and things like that. So if you can get word of mouth is really
Yeah, through associations, so Geography Teachers Association, even interstate ones is good for me. If someone gets up and says, I've used this, then I will write that down and go back and trial it. So if you're getting someone who's an overseer of those kind of associations to trial it and say it's great, and they become a spokesperson for a whole batch of teachers, that works really well.
Also samples, if you send over a sample of something that you've created, and use it and we'll trial it and we'll see if we like it.
Like I said, all three. And the other factor that needs to go into that is time. How much time is it going to take the teacher to read the email, reply to the email, sign up PD, do the paperwork to go on the PD day, and if they can do that all in their recess, or over coffee period 3 when you've got no classes, and that's fine. But time is a major factor because we just don't have it.
Can I say a quick thing? I found something online about open forest, the Forestry Commission, and it was a really great resource. And I thought, it ties in with geography and biodiversity and the animals in the forest and chopping down, deforestation. And so I applied to get their information to me, and it was brilliant. There was cutouts and models and trees and all sorts of things. But what it lacked was a specific digging down and say it meets this syllabus dot point. And it was brilliant. I spent 3/4 of an hour on a holiday thinking, how can I actually use any of this in something? And in the end, I just said, I gave the tree to the teacher next to me and said, Happy Christmas. and said, I can't use it. It was really frustrating because I can see that they've spent so many hours developing this wonderful resource, but I was looking for something that met one dot point of my syllabus, and if that did that well, I'd be happy with that. If someone's developing something in little bite-sized chunks that didn't cost a huge amount as well, if we're buying them, and we tried one thing and that worked really well, that was excellent. I'd be looking for that company again to get another bite-sized chunk of something else that met that dot point of the syllabus well.
Have to give them a call. Any other questions?
It's probably a good segue into cost for a resource. So you mentioned you use a lot of Google and what sounds to be free resources. If you were to associate cost with it, does that come out of what pay you fund it, or does it go through the school, or what's the sort of process behind it? So we work in a stationery company, so art line and pens and markers. So all the talk about digital is actually hurting us. So we want to try and make sure that we can give you curriculums or something.
Teachers last stage.
Get rid of all laptops and reset.
I have this argument with my husband because he takes all his notes, he works in business, it's all on his phone or blah, blah, blah. And I've got a Createl Publishing diary, pen and paper. I buy the outline pens and things like that. A lot of them, too many of them. But I think it's really important still to have that connection, like you were saying with the reading, and for kids to know how to read and write and use pen and paper. And when it comes to purchasing things, I know at our school it's just like it's higher up in the order. Somebody that gets paid more than me makes those decisions. But if I can make a really good case for it, if I can go, this is really worth it, or it's going to impact our kids this way, that's the big thing. When I say that this is how it's going to help kids, or this is how it's going to help me help kids, then they'll go, okay, well, let's buy it, or let's go for that program.
So by checking maybe the syllabus, doing a couple of those dot points as you sort of addressed, creating a program and the product that goes with it that could help, and then sampling it out to you guys from your level because you're actually using it, and then you take that further up the tree to discuss it.
If you get teachers in love with your product, then you fight for it and try and get it.
In the high school, the faculty gets the funding, so each faculty has some sort of money allocated, and so we just, if there's something that I want, I'll just say, look, head teacher, can I have this? And can you please order this? And we'll say, okay, no problem. So,
And that depends on the school as well, which makes it frustrating for you guys trying to get into the school. Where I'm battling in a HSI department where if the legal study, the history teacher's really passionate and say, I want this, and new syllabus, so we're getting all these new textbooks, then it reduces the amount that I have to spend for a year.
The budget's not limited, obviously.
No, that's right.
Thank you.
In terms of actually getting samples to teachers, so obviously, or I'm guessing all the orders would actually be delivered to the office, is that right? So then, say if we were trying to get directly to the teachers, would we need your names to get that delivery into your hands? Or
just the faculty. So if it's a geography book, you'd send it to the HSI faculty, that would come to us via the head teacher.
Depends on how much you want to send. As the careers guy at Cranbrook, I would come back. I would dread, for a number of reasons, I would dread the first day of term. And the main one usually was the pile of information in my office. And it would be not only from universities, it would be from everybody. And that was usually when the coffee came, and if it wasn't relevant then, and if I didn't need it in classes or it wasn't relevant to year 12 in that term, it would go. But I'm not sure about not only as a mainstream teacher, but as a careers guy, we don't want this much. Careers counsellors hate getting boxes and boxes of information because our offices are usually probably a less than a quarter of the size of this room, and storing it, there's nowhere to store it. So size makes a difference.
Yeah.
You want to get one teacher to love something and get it onto the program. If it gets onto the program as, for this dot point, this is a resource to use, then other teachers in our faculty would potentially use it as well.
I'd also write, like who you're addressing it to, write to year 3 classroom teacher.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things go to someone like the head of curriculum and it will sit on her desk for 6 to 8 months, and then she finds something and then she looks at it and thinks, oh, it's actually worth it. Whereas if it went, so if you go, I don't know, it just might be a way of slipping something under the door.
What I used to find annoying was if they can't spell my surname correct. If you're a good social media stalker and you look at the school's website, there's usually the staff list. And I'm not too sure about these schools. I used to hate getting email just sent to the careers advice because, well, unless they take 5 minutes just to find out who I am. That's fine. So no.
Okay, we might need to wrap it up now because we're going to hear from David. David's got a presentation for us before we head downstairs with some more nibbles and wine. But could you please join me in thanking our amazing teachers?